Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are joined by Cottrell. Yes, Jamaal Cottrell joining us here. He's the owner of his own company and really amazing. Go realorlive.org. He's a business and HR consultant at Limitless Leads Coaching, and he's here to help you unlock your full potential and achieve extraordinary success. Cottrell, thank you for coming back. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Please introduce yourself to our listeners today.
Hey, I'm Coach Trell, a retired military enthusiast, into coaching and dealing with a little bit of HR, dibbling, dabbling, and leadership development, and happy to be here today.
Great. Well, we're excited to have you. Tell us a little bit about your background and your work for the new time listeners before we get into our area of focus for today.
I served in the world's greatest Air Force, the United States Air Force. I did 20 years. I retired in 2017, started me a coaching company, and from that point on, I haven't looked back, and I'm just looking forward to being here and having a great pod today.
Okay. And how do we contact you? Could you share the website?
Absolutely. www.realorlive.org, or you can send me an email, atfc@realorlive.org as well.
All right. And on tap for today, I know we're going to dive into, well, relationships, right? So
Absolutely.
communication, trust, transparency, conflict resolution, and so much. So where do we begin?
Let's start with communication. That seems to be the beginning of of everything. So let's start with communication.
They say communication is key, but what does that really mean?
Well, dealing with relationships, effective communication is the foundation of any healthy relationship.
hmm
Keyword being healthy. Some of the things you want to focus on is lack of communication can lead to misunderstandings, conflicts, and distance between whoever the two individuals or several individuals are that are kind of having those conversations. So you want to make sure that you're communicating effectively. So we can talk about a few different things. So communication, you want to start by practicing active listening. This basically means if you're communicating with someone, you don't want to already be formulating your argument while they're talking. You want to kind of be engaged, paying attention to the cues and
hmm
kind of taking, what they're saying into consideration. A lot of times we have people who may, cut people off or they kind of wait to jump in to get their point across. So you want to make sure that, just kind of being patient, just breathing, relaxing, and just, enjoying the moment, participating and actively listening with that conversation. Does that make sense? Have you engaged anyone that you kind of having a conversation, they kind of cut you off and want to get their point across so they don't forget real quick, something like that?
My father is the king of cutoffs. It's so obnoxious. And he doesn't mean it, but he doesn't get it. And he's 74 and he does it every day. Doesn't let you speak. And we would try telling him this. It just, I feel like there's no hope for someone like him. But I know what you mean in general. Yeah, I know a few people like that, unfortunately.
Right. I think we all do at some point, and that's some of the things that you want to kind of look out for. And if you do, one of the things you can do is kind of, let them know, hey, look, it probably will make the conversation flow a little better if,
Yeah,
you didn't interrupt. You weren't trying to formulate your response, just kind of listen to what I'm saying, and let's just have a better conversation from that point on. So those are some of the tips that you can kind of, push on to help people think about those things. Be honest about your own thoughts and
yeah.
feelings. Express how you feel clearly and share your needs and concerns with that individual. That way it opens up dialogue to have that conversation go back and forth. What's some
hmm
of the things, I mean, you being, interviewing people, I'm sure you can attest to that quite often, right?
Well, I'm also a good listener. I mean, there's times that I jump in and there's a little delay, so I feel like, oh my gosh, I jumped the gun on someone. But I just like talking to people and I like hearing people and I don't like talking about myself. So this is the best job. So I really genuinely care about other people and I love hearing what they have to say. But conversation, takes two. You got to listen and yeah, wait your turn.
Right, like they say, it's two or three sides to every story. Your side, the other
hmm
person's side, and then the truth, as they say. So, definitely you want to pay attention and listen. I suggest some good things, or topics, or tips. Is to maybe even take notes sometimes as you kind of talking to somebody. Maybe scribble some things down, especially if you're in a conference or you're in
Yeah.
a meeting or something like that. Write down some notes. That way you don't cut anyone off. You can kind of recap and go back and add a little bit more to that conversation versus feeling like you're kind of being left out. Just some of the things that come to mind as holding good conversations being effective.
And also in communication. But do you find you have to be a good listener?
Absolutely.
What are
That's one of
some
the
of the
most
biggest
important things.
mistakes of communication we make?
Some of the biggest things in communication is jumping to conclusions.
Hmm.
That's one of the things that is just not good. You think you know what they're getting ready to say, so you're anxious, and you might just chop them off. They can say, "Hey, look, yesterday I was," and you're like, "Going to the store." Well, no, yesterday I was just kind of, had a good day and wanted to tell you a little bit about it. So some of the things that you have to watch out for if you're being a good listener, and then you want to listen with the intent to understand, not to necessarily be combative, you know what I
Hmm.
mean, to get your point across. And I think that's a lot of things that people do while communicating is more or less
Aw.
I mean, think about it. Like you said with your father. Them being in his 70s, and if you had a conversation with them, they may think, "Oh, I've already experienced that before. I already know what you're going to say," and so that may kind of be a little eager for them to kind of jump in and engage into the conversation. So, just understanding that it's that person's story, allow them the opportunity to share and express their feelings, and then just be show empathy on the other side and be willing to listen and to understand.
All right, thank you. I'm trying my best to listen. I don't want to cut you off. So what's next?
Trust and transparency. I think that's something that you should take into consideration as well.
Okay.
Another common struggle in relationships is when people tend to have issues with trust. Trust essentially is healthy and lasting relationships. It can lead to jealousy, insecurity, and conflict. To build trust in your relationship, you want to be honest, right? And avoid and
Hmm.
keep the secrets. If you do keep secrets, I'm not sure why you would keep secrets. So a lot of people tend to say they, they don't necessarily share everything because they may not want to hurt someone's feelings. But again, it may be all in the delivery, not necessarily in the message that you're trying to relate to that person. So, if you feel that you don't want to share because you think you might hurt their feelings, then maybe
Yeah.
find a better way of, disseminating that information to that individual so that way it can help you out.
All right. Good advice. Good advice. You got to also learn to trust someone. What is trust to you? How do you gain trust in someone? And what are some good qualities about trust and about people who are trustworthy? That's a lot of questions in one.
It is. Trust is basically you want to be reliable, consistent in your actions, and able to build that trust. You got to show those patterns. Like everything that we deal with is patterns. So be reliable, be consistent, and follow through. If you're talking to someone and you're building that trust, if they're listening to you and you tell them that you may do something or you're looking intending on doing something, make sure you follow up with that. Right? That builds that trust. If you're talking to someone and you tend to tell them things and you don't follow up or don't follow through, that may be more or less a trust issue. They may not be inclined to listen to what you have to say, or they may not believe you, and that may lead to them cutting you off and not necessarily having faith in what you're saying when you're relaying that information. So trust is definitely important.
And
And also, go ahead. I'm sorry.
nope, nope, go, go, go. It's the delay.
No, I was just saying, it just goes back to that dependability thing, and just showing folks that you are trustworthy. So you just want to make sure that you display those.
Okay. And you mentioned the word transparency. So that's like being open, being honest, right? So similar to trust in a sense, but what is the importance of transparency in any relationship?
Well, the importance of transparency is you got to be able to show them where you're coming from. You want to make sure that you're not hiding anything. Again, you're putting all your cards on the table. So that way that they can understand where you're coming from, have a better sense of direction and understanding of what you're saying. In full transparency, hey, look, I more or less don't like what you're doing and how you're going about doing it. As a close friend or companion, let me tell you why I don't like necessarily what you're doing, and let me help empower you or give you some reasons to better understand where I'm coming from and how it may or may not help you in said situation. So again, being transparent as first is just keeping a secret, necessarily not telling people the truth. Those are things you want to kind of avoid, not necessarily run towards, if that makes any sense.
Does. By the way, Trail, how do we reach you?
If it depends. If you want to contact me via telephone, you can call me 210-724-4474. And if you want to reach out via email, atfc@realorlive.org. Those are two ways that you can reach me.
And I know I mentioned really quickly, realorlive.org is the website, right?
That's correct, realorlive.org. And if you want to reach me on socials, it's Trailblaze at Trailblaze.
Got it. And just because this is the time of the show where we establish everything, as a coach, you have workshops, you have, well, we talked about some of your youth programs before, and I know today we're focusing on relationships, but overall, you're working with people, Limitless Leads Coaching, and basically you're working anywhere around the world, right, with these virtual services?
Absolutely. And that's the wonderful thing about, the virtual world is I've been working with some folks out in Africa, out of Rwanda, a couple out of Kenya. I even had a few clients out of Romania and two in Germany, all via Zoom or WebEx or different things, virtual platforms that we can use. So it makes it pretty much amazing to be able to reach out and help anyone that maybe needing help and may not feel comfortable reaching out to certain people or demographics to receive that help. Just allows another way for them to reach out and get what they need and makes more accessible.
And, since relationship is the theme of the day, and when you're talking relationships in general, I mean, we're talking about people who are together, couples, or relationships just in general, friendships, being around people, because just, how do you want to, there's a lot to that because there's also conflict resolution that we're going to talk about too. But what are some of the other things with relationships that you want to share for us today?
Well, so important things with relationship is not is it starts with the communication, but it also goes with the team building. You want to make sure that compatibility is there. It's just because you have to work with someone doesn't necessarily mean that you're compatible to work with someone or that you're compatible to be with someone. So that's something else that you want to figure out, and you got to have those hard questions. So you know what I mean? Because if we may be having issues with communicating, what's some of the issues on why we're having issues, and that can be with the companion, it can be with the coworker, it can be with the friend, spouse, um, kids, even. And that's where some of the other things that we offer with the DISC assessments may come into play. Learn to better understand yourself and how you like to communicate. Getting with a coach such as myself and doing that assessment and figuring out, hey, look, I try to do certain things, but I can't get over the hump. How can I get over the hump? Contact a coach like me. We set up a consultation and we can go over some of your strengths and some of your weaknesses. If some of your strengths are lacking in communication, we can talk about how you can actually become a better communicator, and also it tells into where you come from as a person, your upbringing, different things of that nature. So you can get into the weeds of it and find out what's the really root problem of why you're having issues with communicating, and then we can help you become a better version of yourselves, whether that's through a 30-day program, 60-day, or 180-day program. We can set up different programs for you and to become a better and effective communicator.
And how are you such an expert? How did you become so good at this?
I was start with the upbringing. Unfortunately, being young, being the oldest of three siblings, yeah, I was kind of like
Mm-hmm.
the second in command at home. So I had to help out, my mother to make sure that we took care of things around the house. She was at work, so I was kind of the oldest. So it kind of started at home, making sure my younger siblings were okay, making sure they got up to go to school in the morning. If she was working late, making sure that we had food, preparation for the evening. If we went outside and had fun and different activities, that just kind of helped me amongst friends and different peers because that naturally go get attitude was doing around the house. It translated over to being outside. It was translated to being into sports, and then also further developed by being into the military, so on and so on. So just again, just following the pattern, starting at an early age, and just putting me on that trajectory to be a natural leader, and also, like I mentioned before, is learning how to be a follower as well.
I agree. That's beautiful. And you can credit that to your family upbringing, which is great. And you're teaching and
Absolutely.
instilling those values in your clients. What else for today, Coach Trell, did you want to make sure we're aware of as far as relationships? You want to share some examples of good, of bad relationships, of share some of the resolutions and conflict resolutions you helped others achieve and solve?
So I was scared. So we were working again with the middle school and some of the issues that some of the teachers were having with some of the students. And so we sat down with the teachers and we found out that the first problem was the teachers weren't necessarily on the same page. So they weren't actually communicating with themselves. And then the reflection is kind of goes back to that being in the household. If you see mom and dad or whoever the two parents are aren't on the same page, then you can kind of counter and play them against each other. The mom and dad, or whatever the situation is, play the two guardians against each other. The same thing was happening in the school system. Uh, primary student primary teacher, alternative teacher, when one wasn't there, one wasn't away, the students would figure out which one were a little bit more lenient, and they would try to play or pin them against each other. So one of the things we did was sat down with the staff, and we did the discus session. Sat down and figured out that some of them were natural go-getters, some of them were natural followers, some of them were a little bit more creative than others. And then once we got them on a good path of figuring out the good mix and match of who was the stronger and what area and who was a little bit stronger in other areas. We got them to kind of blend those styles together. And in that way, they were more of a united front and they were better equipped to take on, you know, 25 students in the classroom versus those one or two teachers. So that effective communication tool and process also blended together with a little bit of conflict resolution. So that's how we went about doing that. So that's one example.
Good. Well, we love hearing it. What else did you have in mind for us today, Trell?
Uh, we can go a little bit further into conflict resolution. It's a natural part of any relationship, but it's all about how you handle the conflicts, which can make a significant difference in the health of your relationship. You don't want someone to kind of fly off the deep end, naturally yelling and to be more maybe a little bit more boisterous than some folks. And you have to be careful because depending on the upbringing of some people, and we'll just keep this at the youth development and let's say 18 to 22-year-old round, they may be working in a new office setting, and you may have someone who may be a senior advisor or senior leadership, and they may be a little bit more inclined to people that are more of a yes sir, no ma'am, more structured environment. And so some of the things that you may have is bridging the gap between those two. It may be forceful with the younger employees and not understanding that the old method and the old way of doing things doesn't necessarily as effective with the younger generation as it was with their generation. And that's when you hear the stories was when I was younger and when I was used to do this and when we grew up, telling the whole stories about walking them out of school and different things like that. So what you want to do is bridge the gap. Within that you want to you want to take away the blame and the avoidance. You want to essentially approach them with the empathy and understanding. Listen to their perspective and try to see things from their point of view. Understand that they may have someone at home that may be just like you and they interact and engage with them that way, and they might not be receptive to that learning style or that effective communication style that you think you may have. So knowing your audience, just like any speaker or anyone that's in charge, you want to know your customer, know your audience, and figure out how to disseminate that information to them so that way they can receive it and it's palatable. And I think that's one of the bigger issues that we see within conflict resolution is people not understanding that fact. So you want to focus on finding solutions rather than placing blame. Use I statements to express your feelings and needs without accusing or attacking the other individual. And that tells me what happens a lot of times. That person's on the receiving end and they may feel attacked. Or they may feel like you don't get it, you're just talking to me the same way everyone else does. So you have to figure out, what's the problem. So again, remember the conflicts and opportunities for growth and understanding in your relationship by approaching conflicts with respect, empathy, and willingness to find a common ground. And I think if you take those approaches, that you will find that that solution may help you out, or it may be a great launching point to point you in the right direction in conflict resolution.
And, it's funny because I think life is full of conflict and not always resolution, and especially the work
Right.
environment. You see it everywhere, and it's a problem. Some people butt heads, some people butt personality, some people just is it possible that you can really get two people or two sides to work together? I bet you believe that, right? Like it's possible. May take some work and challenges, but yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you don't have to like each other to work together. Like I always say, coming from a military background, you can be shoveling poop on the side of the highway. The objective is to get the poop up off the highway. It's not for you to necessarily like each other and be friends. If you like each other and you learn to develop that relationship, and that's a bonus, and that may make that a more pleasant and less toxic work environment. But that's something that's another tool that you definitely want to provide to your employees or your students or team or staff to be able to, conflict resolution. You want to be able to do those. So you want to give them multiple tools so that way they can handle those situations. But you don't have to like each other to work each other. I mean, to work with each other. But it is a good place to start. When you want to start developing, fostering relationships, that's what's important. When you want to start networking, grooming, you start thinking outside of yourself and how the different places of the organization can come together. Those are the things that you want to think about, versus just saying, hey, should you like each other at work, or how can we be more effective as a team? So you start using those team building skills and techniques, and that's what you can do to kind of develop that work environment. You
Got
want to
it.
work together with your partner or practicing these skills, you can build a strong, fulfilling relationship that stands the best of time. And I think that's some of the things that you should kind of focus on.
Well, there's also some great testimonials on the site. Working with Trell has empowered me before I started this self-exploration. I lived in the field of failure. Thanking you for your support, for your help. And they're going by so quick, so I lost the rest of that one. But there's
Right.
some good. This one, now with his support, I'm living my passionate life I've always dreamed of. This person, Brett, had limited options before working with you. Charlene says you empowered her. Oh, here we go. Thanks to his coaching and support, she excelled. Perfect. All right, good. So, always good to know you're working with someone who's reputable, clearly with your background. And, what else did you want to add for today?
Just remember, relationships require effort and understanding, communication to thrive. No one or two people are alike. Everybody has a situation or something that's going on throughout life. So take a moment to listen, show some empathy, some compassion, and just appreciate each other. I think that one of the biggest things you'll realize out there is if you actually ask somebody good morning, how are you doing? And you actually care, and they tell you how they're doing, take the moment to have that conversation and engage, because a lot of times people don't necessarily ask or reply to how you're doing because they don't think you actually care. So again, it just
Oh,
goes back to effectively communicating is if you show that you care, I think that person will, reciprocate that energy. And that's what they say nowadays. It's all about showing energy. So positive energy and positive vibes. And I think that'll make it a great launching point for effective communicating.
and what's this leadership game all about?
Wow, so that's an amazing game. So basically, what it is you can speak to the leadership at your workplace. So what's some of the issues that you would say in your workplace that you may encounter that you may need help on? Just asking you for a second, Jill.
Got it. Well, I'm reading that
Would it
before.
be communication, or would it be maybe leadership development in your workplace? So what we can do is we can tailor the game towards leadership development and communication. We can speak with the leadership at your company and say, hey, these are the things that your company focuses, feel that they need to focus on. We're going to play a workshop. Basically, we're going to have a workshop catered around leadership development or effective communication. And it's a game, you keep points, and it allows the company an opportunity to give feedback directly to the leadership, but without it being, necessarily feeling guilt or remorse or fear of reprisal by them sharing their information, with the leadership. So it's kind of like having an anonymous survey done and then getting the feedback and then trying to make changes behind the scenes. This way it allows everybody to buy in input, build morale, esprit de corps, and also building that team environment and capitalizing off that effective communication.
Hmm, beautiful. And you're helping people really grow. And it's part of what it is as a coach. And by the way, you are certified, correct?
That's
You're the
correct.
real deal. I just think there's a lot of people out there who are coaches that you don't need to be certified, but you are, which is great. And again, you talked about the John C. Maxwell, the methodology behind him, right? And so it's shared
Right,
leadership
absolutely.
principles, shared leadership league, shared leadership behaviors. And how that works. And clearly it's working. Yeah, great stories out there.
Absolutely.
Summer's here. What's happening with our youth? Is there any like summer programs and all that you're offering?
Absolutely. We have some great programs coming up. Most of them are virtual. I am willing to travel if anyone needs to fly a coach in, such as myself, to come out there and do youth development programs. Always looking to build up the leadership, always looking to teach that effective communication and teach the young folks how they want to be communicated. One of the things coming up in June is a career report that we're having on special. Is basically what it does is allow them to take a survey, and it gives them feedback based on their personality and what they may or may not be good at in the workforce. So that way, if they don't have an idea what they may want to be, they may be interested in being a farmer,
Oh, wow.
cybersecurity, depending on what the situation may be. They answer the questions truthfully, and it gives a 45-page report, breaks it down and say, hey, look, this is the best careers that are lined up with your personality. You seem to be more of a sales type person. You'll do great in this career. And it'll show them steps and steps on how to go about aligning themselves with that career. So that's something that we have special coming up in June that we're advertising.
Yay. Good, good, good. And in our last 3 minutes together, I can't believe it. How did you kind of want to end off for today?
Today, I just, it's Monday, it's May, the weather's kind of bad. I think
Mm.
we can advise some folks to take some time to do some self-reflecting and figure out what you can do to make yourself a better communicator. And if you can't come up with some of those type of things, feel free to reach out to me for a free consultation, Coach Trail, and I'll help you out. I'll point you in the right direction so that way we can make this summer, make the best out of this summer, utilize, all the 101 days of critical summer to make sure that you're getting in alignment for the following year. So that way you can start off on the best foot forward.
Beautiful. All right. So to reach out to you, shall we go to realorlive.org? Social media, where should we go?
Absolutely. At Trailblaze on all platforms. And then, again, you can send me an email if you want or contact me or send me a text message, 210-724-4474.
Perfect. Also LinkedIn as well. And again, you're providing coaching, helping with communication skills, as we talked about today, training, leadership. You also work with nonprofits, businesses, corporations. And do you do any work with the military still?
Absolutely. We still do some work with the military, training young vets, uh, helping them to become better versions of themselves, helping them also transition from military members and warriors to civilians. And that's one of the biggest things that we need help with as veterans is being able to, once you're done with that time of, being the best version of you that you can be by expressing those core values, is trying to figure out how to function and be a functioning member in civilian sector. And that's one of the things we also take pride in helping as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Coach Terrell. Thank you for being here, joining us, and looking forward to the next time we get to meet again. Thank you. Thank you for today, as always.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You have a great day. And to all of our listeners, reach out, don't forget. And time to start thinking about your relationships, no matter who they're with. But time to learn how to communicate better. Sometimes you got to learn to listen, and sometimes you need some guidance, trust, transparency, and can also help you resolve all that. Thank you again, Trell. Bye-bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.